I enforced the institutional conventions of introducing the production companies and logo of my film before the opening began. I created a logo represented the theme, style and genre of my film, hinting at the genre of science fiction through the image of a wolf howling at the moon, usually creating connotations with mysticism and ideas that are out of the ordinary. I wanted the logo to represent the aims of my film opening. That was to challenge the conventional idea of sci-fi. Generic conventions of a sci-fi film are usually a use of CGI, far-off worlds, and extraterrestrial beings. My audience research revealed that these are all things that people expect to see when they sit down to watch a sci-fi film, even suggesting that it was something they would enjoy seeing be revived and viewed in a different way.
So the traditional sci-fi characters, some of them are a bit outdated, so it'd be interesting if they made a new sci-fi with different sorts of characters.
Although it isn't immediately apparent that my film could be classified as science fiction, I think this is a good thing, as it will surprise the audience and encourage them to watch more of the film. The idea of the new technologies is important, and this is only just suggested at the end of the film when the psychologist brings up the idea of a new solution to the dreams that the patient is suffering from. I made sure to use a variety of genders and nationalities in my film to appeal as a wide an audience as I possibly could. I wanted to challenge stereotypes by having the main character being a male who was shown as weakened by his experiences, almost to the point of losing the stereotypical concept of a man being masculine and emotionally untouchable. The clothes my main character is wearing act as a symbolic sign of this according to semiotics. He is wearing pajamas in the first scene, while sleeping under white sheets emphasizing innocence, making Bondi appear childlike and defenseless. This is a radical portrayal of men. I also tried to portray a woman in a strong position through the character of the psychiatrist, creating what could be seen as a radical portrayal of women. I used close-ups to create intimacy with both characters, especially in the scenes that show Bondi sleeping, as well as a high-angle shot to make him appear smaller and vulnerable. My film also portrays a form of disability, as the main character is suffering from an undiagnosed mental condition that is causing him to have nightmares. This was a fairly reactional portrayal of mental illness. Ideally, a small independent distributing company would distribute my film because of the styling is a low-key and subtle style, and unlike other big blockbusters that would be distributed by films such as Warner Bros. Entertainment, Walt Disney Studios, Sony Pictures, Fox Entertainment Group and Paramount Motion Pictures, all of which come under the category of the Big Six. All of these companies are part of major conglomerates that also own production studios. However, some of these major conglomerates also have special divisions, especially for the production and distribution of independent or art house films, which I believe my film would fit into the category of. Paramount Vantage is also well known for films such as Sofia Coppola's The Virgin Suicides. I think a company like this would be perfect for distributing my film, as the name is recognisable, but there is still a possibility my film would appeal to the alternative style. Hopefully, it would be suitable for DVD release and circulation in film festivals or art house cinema, although it would be unlikely that it would have any success in mainstream cinema because of its low budget, lack of big names, and radical themes. The demographics of my film target audience from around 16 to 30 years old. The film contains quite mature themes of loss and also complex ideas about psychology and technology, though this may not be apparent from just the opening. Hopefully it would be impartial to gender, though the inclusion of romance may attract more of the female demographic than the male. I also think my film would be more likely to attract an audience that has a taste for more challenging and alternative cinema, especially as it would be more likely to be circulated in small film festivals and art house cinemas, so likely would only be viewed by people with an interest in independent cinema. Before filming my film, I conducted audience research by asking people what they expected when they saw a sci-fi film. This is some of the results.
Futuristic landscapes.
Expect the typical kind of Star Wars, Star Trek type scenario, set in space with aliens and quite futuristic.
New technology, things like you find in Star Trek or something like that.
I'd usually expect a lot of suspense and I guess good plot line.
Space and dreams.
Good special effects.
Well, some of the old traditional characters are quite fun.
I'd expect a pretty futuristic character, something like an alien or someone that lives in space.
I usually expect a very intelligent main character, usually a human, then a lot of other characters like robots, aliens.
You expect to see aliens?
I guess that the traditional like sci-fi characters, some of them are a bit outdated, so it'd be interesting if they made a new sci-fi with different sorts of characters.
Most people said they'd be interested in seeing something that is different from the conventional sci-fi form, so I decided to do something that approached this in a different way by using characters you wouldn't normally see. Most people I asked said they would normally expect to see far-off worlds and extraterrestrial beings, so I decided to make mine more relatable by having characters that the audience could relate to. I also conducted research after the film to see how people reacted to my final product. This is what some of them said.
Yeah, the opening of the film is very good. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's a smashing idea.
Yeah, well, I think it looks really good. I think the editing looks really professional for a student film.
The characters, I can relate to this character. It's a great opening of the film.
Yeah, I think the characters come to life and you do relate to them in a way that you want to know what happens.
Would I like to watch more of it? I'd thoroughly enjoy watching more of this film. It's very well presented and I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Definitely. I want to know how it ends.
Before starting work on my film opening, I only had basic knowledge of how to use filming and editing software, having only used Adobe Premiere to edit my preliminary task and pre-AS task. For production of my film opening, I learned how to adjust settings on the camera to gain the best shot, change shutter speed, focus and exposure before I was only aware of how to use autofocus. I think most of my knowledge has come from learning how to best utilize editing software such as Premiere Pro and Adobe Audition that I use to edit the soundtrack for my film. I also learned how to color correct and adjust white balance to make my film look as professional as possible. I am now able to edit to a higher standard, supported by now being able to use keyframes, superimposition and different transitions to make editing look as seamless and professional as possible. My preliminary task was incredibly basic, using a low variation of shots consisting of only close-ups, wide-angle master and shot reverse shot.
Going to a party.
Oh, is that Luke's party? I'm going there too.
Yeah, I might be, but did you hear about what happened?
I personally feel that I have developed massively since shooting this, now having a better knowledge on what shots look most professional and convey mood and character to the greatest extent. I also now know how to edit to a much more professional standard, using transitions rather than just cutting between shots. I now have a better knowledge on what shots are in check with the continuity editing system and also align with the 30-degree and the 180-degree rule. In my film opening, I also experiment a lot more with location, music and character that I think gives new dimensions and maturity to my final product.